Who doesn't love chips? Why not make your own, adding your favorite flavors? Use homemade or store-bought tortillas, bake them plain or add savory or sweet flavors and enjoy. This is a great way to use up some of those spices hanging out in the pantry. Homemade tortilla chips are very easy to make. If you ever find yourself out of chips for guacamole or salsa, no worries. Here's how you can quickly make your own. I'm sharing my 3 baked flour tortilla chip recipes for plain tortilla chips, savory Mexican seasoning tortilla chips, and sweet churro seasoning tortilla chips. For all 3 versions, you're going to need some flour tortillas that are either store-bought or homemade. I'm using my homemade flour tortillas right here. You can check out that recipe on making your own tortillas below in the description. Then we just customize a flavor profile, which basically includes a liquid fat and some seasonings. Let's start with the plain tortilla chips. So you're going to need flour tortillas, oil of any kind, I'm using olive oil, and salt. So take as many tortillas as you want. You can use 6 to 10 is what my recipe is for. For demonstration, I'm just going to use 2. And now, since I'm not a fry and oil person, I'm gonna bake my tortillas. So to bake them, you wanna preheat your oven to 400 degrees. And then you wanna line a baking sheet. Mine is a 17 by 12 inch baking sheet. Just line it with parchment paper. You could use those French silpats if you like. We're gonna start by taking 1 tortilla. We're gonna add a little bit of oil to one side. You could put the oil in a small bowl and then brush it on. I find rubbing it on is a little bit better. Brushing just doesn't spread it quite as much, at least in my opinion. You don't need to coat the tortillas, just enough so that the seasoning sticks to it. And you're gonna put oil on both sides. And then to both sides, we're gonna add a little bit of salt. I'm gonna use coarse salt for this one because I'm gonna be able to see it. You don't have to put any salt on these. Remember, there is a little salt in the tortillas. And you wanna go ahead and do this for all your tortillas. Once you've flavored your tortillas and oiled them, stack them up. You could cut these in strips depending on what size chips that you want. I typically do the triangle. So once I stack them, I just cut them in half, like so. And then half again, kind of in quadrants now. And then these are pretty big, so I think I'll do another cut for each quadrant to get my triangles. 8 chips per tortilla. Okay, once you get them cut out, then just place them on your lined baking sheet, and they should be single layer because they want to crisp up in the oven, so we don't want them touching. Once you have them on your sheet and your oven goes off, then go ahead and put them in the oven. Set your oven for 5 minutes. We're gonna take them out, flip them over, and then another 5 minutes. But it's 10 minutes baking total. Okay, first 5 minutes are up, so let's turn them over. They're not gonna be crispy yet, but they're starting to get crispy. So they'll be crispy when they come out of the oven after the second set of minutes. Back in the oven they go for another 5 minutes. Chips are hot right out of the oven. Notice they're turned a little bit golden brown. You can hear. We're gonna let them cool a few minutes, then break into them and see what they look like. Next is our Mexican seasoning tortilla chips. You're gonna need some flour tortillas, oil of any kind. I'm using olive oil, salt, cumin, chili powder, and garlic powder. Let's prepare the seasoning first. You're gonna need a tablespoon of chili powder. We're gonna sift these in a small bowl just to make sure we break up all of the powders. You're gonna add a tablespoon of cumin, and then 3/4 of a teaspoon of garlic powder. And you're probably not gonna need all of this for your chips. You could save it for a topping, just whatever you want, tacos, whatever. Mix it with your ground beef like taco seasoning. Okay, if there's anything left, you can just dump it out. Since they're not really mixed up yet, go ahead and take a spoon and mix them up real quick. It's all mixed together. For one full recipe, you could use 6 to 10 tortillas depending on the size and really just how many you want. We can get 8 chips out of each tortilla. Just keep that in mind as you're determining how many tortillas that you want. Now, if you're not using very many tortillas, you're not gonna need all of this. Just cover it and keep it in your pantry for a while. It'll be fine. Take 1 tortilla, just brush or rub olive oil on top. You don't need a ton of olive oil here, but you need enough to make sure that we can brown the tortillas and that our seasoning sticks to it. I like to take a little bit of salt, sprinkle it, and I'm using finer salt here, but you can use whatever you want. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle up high. Okay, so you just get enough so that you can see it on the tortilla. And you're gonna put it on both sides, so it's not like you need a lot of any ingredient because you're gonna get the flavoring from both sides of your chips. All right, so that's one. Let's work on the other. Okay, both sides of my tortilla are seasoned. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I need a baking sheet. I have a 17 by 12 inch baking sheet with a sheet of parchment paper on top. Just set that aside. You can cut these in any shape that you want. Strips. I like to do the traditional triangles. So cut it like you would pizza or a pie. And we'll start out and create 4 quadrants. And then I'm gonna cut each quadrant in half. So that gives me 8 total. And then I'm gonna go ahead and place them on my baking sheet as I cut. Notice how quick and easy this is. Doesn't really require hardly any time. With our tortillas in a single layer, not overlapping, they'll crunch up very easily in the oven. We're gonna bake them for 5 minutes first. First 5 minutes are up. Go ahead and turn your chips over. Ooh, I can smell all that seasoning. These are gonna be tasty. Back in the oven for a final 5 minutes. Okay, Mexican seasoning chips are done. You can hear that they're hard. We're gonna set them aside, let them cool, and then we'll check out the inside and see how crunchy they really are. Finally is our sweet churro seasoning tortilla chips. Churro seasoning is basically just cinnamon sugar. It is a seasoning that is used on Mexican churros that you dip into chocolate. So we want that flavor, right? So all you need are some flour tortillas. We're gonna need some butter instead of oil for this one. We want that nice rich gooiness. Cinnamon and granulated sugar. To make the churro seasoning in a small bowl, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. I've used super fine sugar in here and that works too. It's whatever you have. And 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. All right, and then just give it a good mix to combine that cinnamon and sugar. Go ahead and preheat your oven to 400 degrees and line a baking sheet with parchment paper. And I'm using my 17 by 12 inch baking sheet here. Take out as many tortillas as you want to use. 6 to 10 is appropriate for the ingredients in this recipe. I'm not going to be using all this today because I'm only going to use 2 tortillas as a demonstration. You'll need about 4 to 6 tablespoons of butter. You can brush this on your tortilla or you can use your fingers. I just find using my hands is better. Again, you don't need a lot of fat here, just enough to coat both sides of the tortilla. It helps it to brown in the oven and it gives it a little bit of extra flavor. Then go ahead and sprinkle your cinnamon and sugar over the top as much as you would like. Oh, I love that smell. And then flip it over, sprinkle on the other side. And then we're just gonna stack our tortillas, adding butter to both sides of each tortilla and then sprinkling each side with our cinnamon and sugar. Okay, and then stack. Okay. It's probably good enough. For your stack of tortillas, you can cut these into strips. You can cut these into triangles like a traditional chip. And that's what we're going to do here. I get a total of 16 chips here, 8 per tortilla. And then we just want to place them on our baking sheet like so. Again, you want to keep these from touching each other because we want them to crisp up in the oven. Our tortillas go in the oven for 5 minutes. So we're flipping over each tortilla chip. Back in the oven for another 5 minutes. Our churro seasoning chips just came out of the oven. We're gonna let them cool. Looks like they're nice and crunchy. And then we'll break into these as well. Okay, all of our chips are baked. So we have our plain ones over here. Let's take a look at this one. What I like about the plain ones is that I like that they look just like a tortilla. The 10 minutes is perfect baking time. And I love using the coarse kosher salt because you can see it on the tortilla. Let's give these a snap. That's definitely a chip. You can see the layers from the tortilla on the inside and everything snaps nicely. All right, the second one is our Mexican seasoning. This is the cumin and chili powder and garlic powder. I love the amount of seasoning that's on it. It's pretty on both sides. That has a snap as well. They snap just as they should and they smell great. And then our last one is our cinnamon and sugar, the churro seasoning. So it'd be like what you would have on a churro. and it snaps just as easily as well. And I like the seasoning. I think it's just enough on both sides. I like the thicker granulated sugar because it sparkles and you can actually see it with the cinnamon. Enjoy the savory chips with guacamole, salsa, bean, or cheese dip used in a taco salad or as a base for nachos. For the sweet churro chips, eat them like you would churros, either by themselves or dip them in a chocolate sauce or dulce de leche. All of these chips can be stored in an airtight bag or container at room temperature for several weeks. They should maintain their crispiness. Keep a stash of homemade or store-bought tortillas in the freezer. Whenever you get a hankering for a savory or sweet crunch, flavor, slice, and bake a few tortillas and enjoy. Thanks for watching and subscribing. Until next time, go bake the world.